Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Income is the Outcome, where we believe it's not how much you earn, it's how much you keep. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is Tim Whistler. He is the founder and president of the Whistler Agency. We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking all about Medicare, how to protect your health and your wallet. We know that Medicare is one of the most confusing subjects that retirees have to navigate through. So today we're going to break down the basics for you. We're going to reveal a hidden surcharge that could cost you thousands and expose what's happening in headlines regarding Medicare Advantage plans. Trust us, this is a show you can't afford to miss. Tim, my friend, so good to be here with you this week. How are you?
I'm great, Kristen. It's always good to be back in the studio with you again as well.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm excited to have this important conversation. And before we get started today, I want our viewers to know this piece of your history and background, which make you such an expert in this important subject regarding retirement planning. So would you mind sharing about your background?
Sure, not at all. So I was blessed to open my practice full time back in March of 2004. And right after that, a gentleman approached me from, I can't remember the name of the insurance company, but he said, hey, you should probably look at Medicare products. I'm like, well, that makes sense because when people turn 65, chances are they're going to need them, so why not do that?
Right.
So I started earning all my licenses, getting all certified with that back in 2005, and I ran that book of business through 2024. So 19 years of serving wonderful people in the Medicare world.
And I know that you have always said that those relationships were just so precious to you, being able to care for humans in this important season of needing health care. And Medicare is one of the most confusing things to try to navigate, right?
Yeah, they don't make it simple. When you've got all kinds of different parts and you've got plans and you've got people, you turn 64 and a half and your phone blows up, right? Everybody's calling you and trying to get on their plan, and it can get very overwhelming very quickly.
Right.
And we just enjoyed, breaking it down and put it on workshops, calling it Medicare 101,
Yep.
what you need to know to make that informed and educated decision. And it was just a great time of our career.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always say people get really sexy around age 65, right? From a marketing standpoint.
Yes, they do. Everybody wants them.
That's right. Yes. All right. Well, let's break down. We're going to start off today with some of the basics because Medicare is simple, said no one ever. It can get really confusing. In fact, it's often referred to in our industry as the alphabet soup of Medicare. So, Tim, let's just start with the basics. There's a few different parts. We're going to keep this high level today, but what do our viewers need to understand about the different parts that make up Medicare?
So there are 4 parts to it. Part A, B, C, and D. So they use the first 4 letters of the alphabet. So Part A is your hospital coverage, right? And a lot of times that doesn't come with a premium. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So Part A is basically covering your hospital. Part B is your medical, right? That's when you need to go see the doctor. That's when you have your blood work and your outpatient procedures. That's your Part B premium. Then you've got Part C. We're going to talk about Part C extensively today, but Part C is what they call Medicare Advantage. So it's an alternative to original Medicare. So you get your coverage through an insurance company through what they call a Medicare Advantage plan. And then Part D is your prescription drug plan. And you can get your prescription drug plan as a standalone to original Medicare, or it can be included with your Medicare Advantage plan.
Yes. Okay. And then, so Part D, the prescription drug coverage as well. That's something that I think folks get really confused about of, do I need this even if I, need medications or not? That's something that is often confusing for folks, right?
It gets very confusing. And that's one of the things when we were talking through people through those 19 years, we always brought up prescription drugs. What prescription drugs are you taking? Because when you're trying to figure out which Medicare plan to go with, make sure that you're sitting down with someone, number one, that you know and possibly can trust, right? From the standpoint of, they live in our area, so they've been doing this for a long time. Don't just limit yourself to a phone call, because again, when you turn 64 and a half, 65, everybody's going to start contacting you to get you on their plan. So making sure that you can speak with somebody who you firmly believe can understand and decipher this foreign language.
Right. Because
when it comes to finding that drug plan, understanding what the client's taking right now is critical to helping them pick that right plan for them.
For sure. And we're going to unpack a little bit more about how you help folks decipher what's right for them as we continue on today's show. But the next question we need to cover from a basics standpoint is, when is the right time to sign up? Is it always age 65?
Actually, no, it's not. But 65 is what they call the initial enrollment period. So it's the IEP. So think in terms of, let's simplify this. Let's say your birthday is in June. You're going to turn 65 on June 20th, just a random date. You have a 7-month window in which to enroll into Medicare for the first time, and it starts 3 months prior. It includes the month of and 3 months after your 65th birthday. So you have that seven-month window in which you can enroll in Medicare for the first time. But you ask the question, is that the time we enroll? It's not. Because let's say, for example, somebody who's turning 65 on June 20th loves what they do, and they're going to continue to work. So they're not really going to enroll maybe around their 65th birthday because they've got what Medicare calls credible coverage.
Through their place of
Through their
employment.
employer, right.
Right.
So let's say they're going to retire at 67. Okay? They can then enroll into Medicare for the first time through what Medicare calls a special enrollment period. So that special enrollment period can include, again, changing jobs or losing your group benefits, if you will. What if you move away, right? Some people live and work in one state. They're like, hey, I want to go somewhere south because I don't like the winters here in central Illinois. So they move away. So you might need to get a different plan depending upon where you move to. Another situation, it might be, well, I get my group benefits through my spouse. Right now the spouse retires, so now I enroll at that point. So it's not always just hinging right around your 65th birthday. There can be other life events that can trigger when we can enroll.
Now let's talk about costs from a basic level. This is another area where Medicare gets really complicated. So how do the costs at the basic high level here that we're talking about today work?
So through all those working years when you're having those glorious deductions taken away from your paycheck, right? Part of those deductions is going into the Medicare program. So a lot of times when you look at your paycheck and you see that deduction going into Medicare, it's going to what we call Part A, your hospital benefit. So therefore, if you've earned 10 qualifying years or 40 quarters of having that deduction taken from your paycheck, you've paid for Part A. So a lot of times Part A doesn't have any costs associated with it. Part B, however, has a premium attached to it. Now the premium is set by the government each calendar year. So for here we are in 2025, just about ready to wrap up the year. It's $185 per month. Okay, now
Per person per month.
per person per month, exactly right.
Yeah.
So we have that, right? So once we have A and B, now we basically, picture yourself driving through the country and you come to a T in the road. You can go this way or you can go this way. In the Medicare world, you can go a Medicare supplement plan or you can go a Medicare Advantage plan. But before you make that decision, you have to have parts A and B lined up with the effective date for your Medicare plan to kick in.
So again, lots to make sure that it's working and orchestrated and coordinated, and making sure you have the right coverage that meets your needs, which I know is a huge thing for folks to navigate through. As we wrap up this segment though, I'm curious, what do you find is the biggest misconception with Medicare?
I think one of the things people think about with Medicare is that it's going to be the one-size-fit-all, right? Think in terms of Medicare being that short-term plan, right? It covers your hospital, it covers your medical, and it covers your drug benefits. But what it does not cover is when we start to lose our independence to take care of ourselves. That's long-term care.
Right.
This is not Medicare, okay? That's one thing that we need to talk about it. Another thing too, I think people were like, well, I don't understand it, so I don't want to mess with it until it's right here. Don't do that to yourself. Give yourself plenty of time to digest the options available to you, because like Kristen said at the very beginning of the show, the government unfortunately does not make this simple. You've got different parts to pick from. Then with Medicare Supplement, you've got different plans. And by the way, they also use letters for those plans as well. So it can get very confusing very quickly. So if you know you're approaching the time when you need to get onto Medicare, either because you're turning 65 and you're transitioning off to a group plan or from a group plan, or if you're retiring after 65 and you need a group plan, give yourself plenty of time to find that resource that can walk you through the options and help you get that plan started on day one.
And I think another misconception I would add that a lot of folks aren't aware of is that it doesn't cover your dental, your vision, and your hearing, right?
Yeah, good point.
Which are three of the things that tend to go south as we get older. So you got to make sure you have the right coverage to address them.
That's exactly right. And we'll talk through that as we get a little bit more detail, but you're exactly right. Dental, vision, and hearing, the things that we need aren't covered. So how are we going to cover those?
Yep, for sure. Well, clearly Medicare isn't just this one and done kind of scenario. And you mentioned the importance of really educating yourself about what's available to you and what would be right for you prior to reaching Medicare age. So what's the first step that someone who's watching today should take to make sure that their Medicare planning is done correctly and is part of a comprehensive, holistic retirement plan?
I would say, reaching out to somebody who's local. There are plenty of people in our area who specialize in Medicare, and that's all they do. And I work with a couple of them very, very closely. So, another way of going about this is going on Medicare.gov. Go to Medicare's website. You can start to kind of educate yourself. You can go through the PDF called Medicare and You. They come out with a brand new book every year. I will warn you, it goes pretty deep very quickly. So maybe just give yourself a little bit of increments of information as you can absorb that in one sitting to the next. But I think just starting ahead of time to understand your options from somebody who's local and can translate the foreign language is a great place to start.
So how can viewers today connect with you to be able to get the help that they need? How is that going to be part of this complimentary written financial plan that you offer?
So that is something we always bring up, especially if we're meeting with people before they're turning 65 and we're making that transition. We'll walk you through that. In other words, if you don't already have maybe somebody in place or somebody in mind that can help you with this, we have people that we have relationships with who can walk you through that process and help you set up, get you set up with that plan that makes sense for you.
Good. So important for folks to be able to review their healthcare costs, budget, needs, and I know you look at that very seriously as part of an overall comprehensive holistic financial plan, because as we're about to see in the next segment, Medicare is one of those areas where you got to really be careful that you're making the right decisions in the context of all the other financial decisions you're making. So if this is something that you're needing help with, we encourage you to reach out to Tim and the team of the Whistler Agency and schedule your time to come in and receive your complimentary written financial plan. To do so, all you need to do is call the number on the bottom of your screen, 888-992-7829. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply grab your smartphone. You can scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will get you connected as well. Stay with us when we come back. If you have done a great job of saving, are you aware that you might be subject to the penalty known as IRMA? Stay with us to find out more about what that is and how you can protect yourself from it when we come back.
I remember telling my dad when I was a senior at Illinois State University, Dad, I always want to run my own small business of some sort of fashion. Didn't really know what that looked like. And then in February of 2000, my wife and I celebrated the birth of our firstborn, Cameron. And at the time we were living in Denver. About a couple of weeks after his birth, my mom and dad were going to make the trip out. And I remember that morning my dad calling and saying, hey, Mom's not feeling good today, so we're going to postpone leaving today. We'll try to leave tomorrow. And unfortunately, tomorrow just kept coming and coming and coming. It never showed up. So a couple months passed and we decided to go ahead and make the drive back to Central Illinois. And the first time my mom met Cameron she was in a hospital bed. The doctor diagnosed her with very aggressive terminal small cell cancer. My very first Father's Day there in June of 2000 was the last Sunday my mom was ever alive ever again. It was shortly thereafter that when my father went and received some financial advice and we started talking a little bit more detail about finances, and I started to look at these statements and I said, Dad, this guy's taking advantage of you. He's doing so much buying and selling in your account that you're losing a ton of money to pay his commissions. I said, I'm gonna start earning my licenses right now to become a financial advisor, because what you just experienced, I think, is happening way too often in our industry. I wanna focus my life on not just making a living, I wanna make a difference. It was not an easy journey. It was certainly not a smooth ride at all. It was a lot of ups and downs. Success is not owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Tim Whistler, and we are so glad that you're joining us today. If you're just tuning in, today's episode is a very important and informative conversation all around Medicare, how to protect your health and your wallet. Before we dive into the subject of IRMA that we're going to be talking about in this segment, we were talking during the break, Tim, and I want to make sure that you are able to clarify this for our viewers. There are some different enrollment periods with Medicare, which further complicates the decisions at hand. So can you walk our viewers through what those different enrollment periods are?
Absolutely. So we touched on the IEP, your initial enrollment period, which is all about your 65th birthday. Mm-hmm. Then we also talked about the special enrollment period, life events, changing jobs, moving out of the area, et cetera. But what I failed to remind everybody of is what happens every year. It's called the annual enrollment period. So currently it's set up to be between October 15th and December 7th. That basically opens the window for people who have a Medicare Advantage plan or have a standalone Part D drug plan to look at the current benefits, what are the benefits going to be proposing for the upcoming year, and you have that window of time to make the change so that your new plan goes into effect on January 1st. Mm-hmm. So don't forget about the AEP every year.
Yes, important to know for sure. All right, well, it's time now to dive into the Medicare surcharge, because this could cost you thousands if you are not prepared to learn about it and to know how it could affect you. And that is something known as IRMA. And basically it's a fancy way for saying that if you have saved enough and too much for retirement, or if you're making too much money, you could have to pay more for your Medicare premiums. And the kicker is there's a 2-year look back. So Tim, why don't you just explain exactly what IRMA is and what our viewers need to understand about it?
So just like you said it so well. You've worked, you've saved, you've sacrificed, you've got a good stream of income coming in, but if you make too much, guess what happens? Now you have to pay more for Medicare Part B, which is your medical, and potentially Part D, which is your drug plan. So it affects everybody a little bit differently, but it's basically what they call an income-related monthly adjustment amount. And just like Kristen said, is they will look at what your income was 2 years ago to determine your current year's Part B and Part D premiums. So it's just something we have to be mindful of the fact that, you know, sometimes, Kristen, when I'm doing my fact finding with clients and we're sitting down and we're going through that income plan, if we're blessed to be in that position of having income where the government says, look, you've earned too much income, now you got to pay IRMA. Well, okay, we'll go into it with a plan, right? But just something we have to be mindful of, because unfortunately it can catch people off guard if they're not aware that it exists.
For sure. Now, how do they go about determining how much of a surcharge that someone will pay?
So they have, so guys, if you want to put this up on the chart, we've created a couple of charts here for the TV screen where it kind of gives you an idea of how much income are you able to earn before they apply the surcharges. So they're basically using your modified adjusted gross income. So here we're going to show you, so husband and wife, right? We're married filing jointly. So for 2025, you can see that we are allowed, if you look at that very first top line, $212,000 or less, you are well within the threshold of Medicare. So in other words, there's no premium attached to it. But as soon as you spill $1 over that and go up to $266, now you instantly are going to pay another $74 per month per person for that calendar year just for Part B, and then $13.70 more for Part D. And then obviously it goes further and further down that bracket. And if you go to the next slide there, now it shows us the details for a person that's single. So basically the numbers are cut in half. So now if a single person is earning $106,000 or less, they're paying no surcharge. But as soon as we go $1 over, or even 1 penny over, I could really say, now you immediately go to that higher threshold. And unlike our tax system, which kind of has a progressive adjustment, this one is as soon as you spill over, that surcharge immediately applies. So again, they're going to look at what your earned income was or what your adjusted gross income was 2 years ago to apply your current surcharges if they apply.
Right, so to put it in perspective, the decisions you make from an income standpoint at age 63 are going to affect how much you pay for Medicare at age 65, correct?
That's exactly right.
And so on and so forth, yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I get that question out, okay, I got to pay IRMA this year. How long is this going to last? Well, it'll just last this year based upon what we did 2 years ago. But now when we flip the calendar over to next year, now they look back to the previous 2 years. So for example, you know, here we are in 2025, getting ready to turn the calendar to 2026. So we may have paid Medicare in 2025 based upon what we earned in 2023.
Right.
I feel like we're going really deep, really fast here.
Yep.
But we flipped the calendar over to 2026. Now they're going to look back at what we earned in 2024 to determine whether or not there's a surcharge or not.
Well, I know you and I have both heard those horror stories of folks who were completely blindsided by IRMA. They had no idea that they were going to be subjected to it. Yeah. What are some of the most common things that you have seen that can unexpectedly push someone into these different IRMA brackets, if you will?
The one that comes to mind was when COVID hit back in 2020, and we went from doing in-person events to virtual events. Wasn't the ideal scenario, but it is what it is. We had to work around that. But I'll never forget speaking with a gentleman from South Carolina. He attended one of our webinars. We had a get acquainted conversation, and I brought up IRMA. And he goes, oh yeah, I found out the hard way about IRMA. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? My point is a Roth conversion that his wealth manager he was working with had no clue IRMA even existed. The Roth conversion, he wanted to save so much in future taxes. He was very aggressive with his Roth conversions in that year. Guess what happened 2 years later? So now you're out of your mind, right? You're out of the mindset from, okay, I just did a Roth conversion this year. It's out of your mind 2 years from now. All of a sudden, why did my Medicare premiums go up? His advisor had no clue. So, you know, a Roth conversion, if it's too aggressive, can spill over Medicare. Also, too, another one is a large capital gain.
Right.
And if we liquidate something and it generates more income. So we just have to be mindful of the fact that as you're generating income, either from pensions, Social Security, you're taking, you know, withdrawals from your savings accounts, everything that counts as income can count towards Medicare IRMA. So you have to be very careful of those different types of transactions that can occur, so we're not surprised 2 years from now when Medicare IRMA shows up.
Well, and this is why I said earlier, Medicare is one of those areas where it proves that you need to have it be a part of your overall financial plan, right? Because how you make a decision in one area of your financial life can and will affect all these others. But it sounds like with the right strategic planning, that IRMA often can be reduced or avoided altogether, right?
It can be, and it's part of our plan. So in other words, whenever clients come in and sit down with us and we go through that complimentary written financial plan for them, there is a box that's always marked in our software, and it's called IRMA. Because as I'm forecasting into the future how long the assets are going to be projected to last, how much income do we need for the expenses, the wants and the needs, Medicare IRMA is right there on the forefront.
Right.
Because I know where my mind's going to go if a client says, look, I know that at some point down the road when I have to turn on RMDs, required minimum distributions, maybe we want to do some aggressive tax planning ahead of time. Well, we have to be very careful.
Yeah.
Because we don't want there to be a surprise 2 years from now, even though we're trying to save our taxes from a holistic point of view. We still need to be mindful of the fact of what our transactions today can affect the dollars tomorrow.
Right. Well, no doubt this is a wake-up call for a lot of people watching who maybe this is brand new information to them. So Tim, thank you. I'm excited for you to be able to help with more folks as a result of today's conversation. But if this is something that you're worried about, if this is something that you are maybe learning about for the first time and you want to see how you can get in front of it for yourself as part of your financial plan, we encourage you to reach out to Tim and schedule your time to come in to receive your very own complimentary written financial plan today. That number to call is 888-992-7829. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code. That will get you connected as well. When we come back, why are the words profit and greed currently being thrown around in the Medicare Advantage world? We're going to expose what the headlines have been saying recently for you right after this.
When you start hearing more stories about their grandkids or the birth of another grandchild, to now they start sharing stories about how they're taking care of mom or dad, you start to become part of their family. The relationship kind of builds naturally. We meet on a regular basis. They've got my cell phone number. They can email me. They can text me if there's anything comes to mind. Or whatever the case is, you start to you continue to build that relationship. And what a joy that is whenever somebody calls in and asks, how are you doing? How's Rhonda doing? You become part of a family together, and it becomes very, very, very personable. And every day, get to go to my office and sit down and just look at my clients' databases. I can see who's having birthdays today, and then for them to kind of share with you the joy of having that plan, the joy of having that advisor, that counselor that'll walk right alongside of them through all the years into retirement. I just want to make sure as the years unfold that we just continue to build on the growth and just kind of keep the practice running on solid ground and continue to provide service to clients.
Hey everyone, it's Tim. As you know, I've authored the book, License to Spend. I have a big favor to ask you. I would like to get this book into the hands of as many people as possible, so like yourself, they can experience retirement with confidence. So if there's someone you know, family, friends, acquaintances, that could benefit, give me a call and I can send you a package with some copies of License to Spend for you to share. Thanks so much for your help, and I'll talk with you soon.
Welcome back to Income is the Outcome. Today we have been discussing Medicare, everything you need to know from the basics to helping avoid the IRMA surcharge. And now we need to make you aware of some recent headlines where insurers have been under fire, allegedly for putting profits over putting what's in the best interest of patients. And so we want to expose this whole profit and greed conversation, which we were saying during the break. It's pretty juicy, right?
It sure is. Yep.
Yeah. So what is going on with these allegations? From your perspective and all the research you've done, what is actually taking place?
So, during those 19 years when I was a broker, part of my certification every year, I had to go through, every broker has to go through certification every year. It basically took me an entire Saturday to go through all the different modules, everything we had to go through. And one of those modules was fraud, waste, and abuse. And I'm telling you, Kristen, the numbers that jumped off the screen were so unsettling about seeing tens and sometimes hundreds of billion dollars with a B in fraud every year. And basically what they started to realize was the fact that it was happening at the insurance level to try to sway brokers to basically encourage people to sign up for their plan, because insurers get compensated by the government whenever somebody signs up for their Medicare Advantage plan. And that's obviously not an ethical thing, a business practice whatsoever. So that was revealed back from 2016 to 2021, and right around that time frame, they really cracked down. When I say they, meaning the government, they basically changed the entire commission structure. So it was basically whenever a broker put a client onto a Medicare Advantage plan, the commission did not vary from insurer A to insurer B. It was flat across the board. So they tried to get ahead of it, but unfortunately it reared its ugly head way too soon.
Well, this is affecting a lot of people because Medicare Advantage plans now cover more than half of Medicare beneficiaries. So this is what's crazy. The numbers are huge. As you said, over $462 billion to Advantage organizations. That's over half of Medicare spending. So why should someone who's on Medicare be concerned and be aware of these allegations? What do they need to understand about how it could affect them?
Well, and what's interesting about that statistic that you just read was I came across an article that gave us a breakdown of the timeline of the transition. My very first year as a Medicare broker back in 2005, the number of people that were on Medicare Advantage plans at that point was 13%. And now, just like you said, now it's over half. It's over 50%. So why the migration? Well, we have to be very cautious because we didn't really break this down before, but when I talked about Medicare Advantage plans being a Part C plan, think in terms of that being an equation. Your Medicare Advantage plan is a Part C, but think of it as Part A plus Part B plus Part D equals C, right? Hospital, medical, and drugs all in one plan, okay? This is a plan that replaces original Medicare. Now you have to have Medicare A and B, your hospital medical, to be eligible for a Medicare Advantage plan. But what we have to really be cautious about is that all of the Medicare Advantage plans that are out there, they will offer everything that Medicare offers to you, but they'll enhance it. They'll throw in some dental, some vision, some hearing, maybe even some cost-efficient dollars to maybe help you if you want to go to the gym, maybe for your over-the-counter. They can enhance it, but we have to be very cautious and careful of, again, aligning ourselves with a company that's going to provide us the care that we need inside the network of doctors that we can choose from, and again, provide you with a prescription drug plan that keeps us, at that high quality of life.
Right. So if someone's watching today and they want to be sure that they are picking the right plan for themselves, what would your encouragement be to them?
I would encourage, make sure you do your homework. Go to Medicare.gov, start there, and then that'll kind of start breaking down what does a Medicare supplement plan look like? What's a Medicare Advantage plan look like? And then once you kind of have the idea of, well, this kind of maybe feels like me, go find that resource. If you don't have one, we'll be sure to point you in the right direction.
Yes, for sure, because I know, I have full confidence you are going to help folks figure out how this is going to fit into their comprehensive, holistic financial plan.
We sure will.
Wonderful. Well, Tim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and knowledge on this subject today. We hope that you found this to be helpful and valuable. We encourage you to reach out, 888-992-7829. We know it can be confusing, but you don't have to go it alone. Tim and the team of the Whistler Agency are here for you. Be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next time here on Income is the Outcome.